back, we take you back 30 minutes now and watch as that home just absolutely explodes in Brentwood, New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire. It burst into flames where there had been a police officer who was shot around 4 o'clock this afternoon. That home blew up about 30 minutes ago, and now we want to take you live and show you exactly what's left of it, which is all of nothing.
It's nothing.
This is a duplex. There were 2 driveways, 2 garages, a shared home.
Shared wall.
And there's nothing left of this home, and behind it, the woods have also caught fire, and there are numerous homes in this over 55 community.
That officer in serious condition transported to the hospital with the injuries that he or she sustained in this event today. Liam Martin is on the ground there as well. Liam, what are your eyes showing you right now?
So that black, thick smoke is still rising up and approaching the tree line. The fire crews arrived, I'd say, about 15 minutes ago. As we said before, initially there was a concern with about sending fire crews into a potentially dangerous situation given the shooting. Now that the house has exploded and clearly gone up fully in flames, they have arrived and they're trying to fight it at this point to keep it from getting to that tree line. In the meantime, they've gone about the multiple agencies here have and evacuated the neighborhood. Most of the residents of this subdivision are now across the street, gathering, waiting anxiously to hear what's going to happen with their houses. And this particular home that is on fire and that was the scene of the shooting, there's one resident, in fact, who says that she has a unit inside of that. So this might be a multi-unit building. Mm-hmm. We were talking with one man. It seems like not everyone has been able to get out at this point. We were talking with one man who says that his wife and child are still in their unit inside this subdivision that's not exactly close to where the fire is going on. But he's, of course, concerned about how his wife and child are doing emotionally and waiting anxiously for them to come out. And as of yet, they have not.
Well, and there's been no indication whether or not anyone has been apprehended here, Liam, correct? So it's not just the fire that's a threat potentially. They have to be very cautious whether or not there's someone with a gun out there.
Right, no indication of that at all. The only vehicle that has left the scene, best we can tell, is the ambulance that left very likely with that police officer. No one else has left. In fact, the emergency crews continue to arrive, and they continue to push people back, too, as we watch that fire. The smoke, even in just the last 5 minutes, seems to have dimmed a bit. So that, of course, is a sign that firefighters are fighting.
Well, to that point, Liam, the structure is completely gone. There's not much left. Right. They seem to be in getting control over the structure. The question is now, what about the wooded area, and what about any embers that had gotten caught in the wind? News Center 5's coverage continues live from Brentwood, New Hampshire. Stay with us. A little over a half hour ago, Brentwood, New Hampshire, the home of the right, explodes. Flames that were already raging through the structure ignited, and the explosion has caused the entire structure to be leveled. That's happened quickly.
Fire crews getting a handle on it, at least in terms of containing it now, as we're looking live to the 2 structures, the duplex that was the site of the explosion and the massive fire there. It has not spread to any other homes in this community, but clearly that is a possibility at this point, and one that they're taking very seriously.
There has been an officer-involved shooting. An officer has been shot in serious condition and has been transported to the hospital. We continue to stay over this. There is more breaking news to share with you tonight. 6:18 in the evening. Let's take you back live to Brentwood, New Hampshire, and you can see the fire department is just pouring water on this explosive fire in Brentwood. An officer has been shot. That officer in serious condition. The fire itself and the structure, because there isn't much left of the structure, appears to be dwindling a bit, but there is concern about the wooded area behind.
Phil Lipoff is monitoring the developments as they come into the newsroom. And Phil, have you learned anything more about this fire?
Well, we certainly have, Heather, and Ed, this is the one piece of information we've all been looking for since this began. We've seen the fire. We know that an officer has been involved in a shooting. Our sister station, WMUR in New Hampshire, is working this story as well. And the information that we are sharing back and forth, we've now learned that living in this particular home, we believe the one on the right, was an 85-year-old man and his son. And our sister station is telling us that there was some sort of strained relationship between them. There was some sort of fight that happened. Police responded to around 4 o'clock, and that was the beginning of all of this. We don't know what happened from there. We don't know how an officer was shot or what happened after that. WMUR, our sister station, tells us that one person has been transported to Exeter Hospital. We don't know if that is the police officer that we know was transported earlier with some serious injuries from the shooting. But we do know one person has been transported, and this is an 85-year-old man and his son living in that area. This is videotape from earlier. Boy, we saw this live on air. This was the explosion. The fire had been burning for about 15 or 20 minutes before this explosion happened, and we were all kind of wondering why there were no fire crews on the scene and why police were keeping everybody back. We can only assume it's because they knew something was in that house that perhaps was going to explode. That's exactly what happened. And very quickly after that, Heather and Ed, you've been watching both of these structures, both of the homes on either side are now reduced to virtually nothing, and fire crews are there. They're getting water on what's left, but more important, they are getting water on the woods behind there, because that could be a big problem. This is about 52 acres in this area, and a lot of it is wooded. That's part of the draw for this community here, and now some of those woods are on fire. But we do know this began. Police responded to this house because of some sort of argument, fight that was happening between the 85-year-old man and his son living there. Ed, Heather?
And I will say, just by the eye test, by what we are looking, if you look at the house that you can see, which is still intact on the right, just slightly above it in the woods, you can see a flame in there. But if you look in the wooded area, it doesn't appear to be the flames as present as they were as recently as a half hour ago. So they have worked very quickly, very diligently, very professionally to get water not only on the fire to contain it, but it would appear that they've also begun to put down significantly what was going on in the woods as well. So they've moved fast.
As they needed to, because this was a dangerous situation. Again, this police officer who was shot, the most we can tell you about this person is, we don't even know if it's a man or a woman at this point. We haven't been confirmed that information, but that officer has been taken via a med flight, so very serious situation, in serious condition this evening, to Exeter Hospital. And there's a huge police presence on the scene, as well as a huge fire presence on the scene. We have heard that in this community there are like 25 to 30 different duplex units here in this neighborhood. Many of them were evacuated. About 12 different people came out and talked to Liam Martin, very alarmed that they had been hearing explosive sounds. And then, of course, we saw the home itself explode during our live coverage, and that was something that you certainly don't see every day. But again, some of the people are still in this neighborhood, and there is what happened.
Look at that.
Unreal.
Did you see the one launch? It shot one to that house next door, and at least from our helicopter perspective, the house that's on the right seems to have sustained, if any damage, only minor damage. So that's remarkable.
And police are keeping a very close to the vest on this one in terms of the information that they're releasing. Our sister station has reported that there was an 85-year-old man and his son who had gotten into some sort of altercation, and police officers were called to the scene, and that's how it began to escalate here.
Live Sky 5 in the air in Brentwood, New Hampshire. Stay with us.
Bring you up to speed on the breaking news that we're following in southern New Hampshire. Live pictures of this intense fire in Brentwood, New Hampshire. It started about 4 o'clock, so that's 2 hours and 18 minutes ago, when police responded to the scene there because there had been an officer shot. We just spoke to a selectman from the town of Brentwood who has heard reports of serious injuries but cannot tell us if this was a Brentwood officer, a New Hampshire officer, but this scene here began with an officer-involved shooting, and he is injured, he or she.
And we've shown you twice the loop video there that after that fire erupted, an explosion, a large explosion at that home. No reports of bystanders in that area injured. Police have allowed fire department officials to come in and douse the fire. Portions of the embers have gone into the forest behind, but they're not saying that's a huge concern right now, even with the hot weather and the windy conditions out there.
So again, for those of you who haven't heard, we just learned that this is Mill Pond Road, which is a 55-year-old plus community that's been there just for a handful of years, or about 25 to 30 homes, and this backs up to what's called the Mills Falls open space, so there's all forest behind. We have crews headed there. Continue to follow this breaking news. Stay with 7.
We do continue to follow breaking news here on 7 News at 6. Up in Brentwood, New Hampshire, a police officer shot. A fire in this home followed, then a large explosion in that home. They have let firefighters in now. They're trying to put out this fire. We understand from a town selectman, this is going to be the explosion that happened, by the way, that the officer shot, unconfirmed, has serious injuries. We'll continue to follow this right here.
Before we leave you here at 7 News at 6, we want to just check in one more time on the breaking news, live pictures, and it's definitely an improved situation in terms of firefighters getting a handle on the spreading flames. This is a 55-year-old plus community on Mill Pond Road in Brentwood, New Hampshire, and there are about 25 or 30 homes, so at least they've kept them from spreading. Bad news is this whole scenario here, there's the explosion in the home. The fire and explosion happened after reports of a police officer shot. We have heard from our Susan Tran, reporter there in the neighborhood. She said that neighbors heard 2 series of gunfire before the house was on fire and then exploded. We talked to a selectman from Brentwood there. He says that he has heard the injuries for the police officer are serious.
Unconfirmed at this point, but we're working to get those details and more. We're going to keep Sky 7 HD live over this scene as we continue to get more information. For updates on this developing story, WHDH.com all night. We'll be back here for 7 News at 11, an hour earlier for the news at 10 on CW56. There's also Twitter and Facebook. Find the 7 News. Along with Kim Casey, I'm Adam Williams. We'll see you later on.
Breaking story up in Brentwood, New Hampshire. A lot of questions remain tonight. We heard it was a police-involved shooting. We don't know beyond that except a home is destroyed. I know at least one person was injured.
And we have Ken Christensen on the phone with us. He's a selectman in Brentwood, New Hampshire. Ken, thank you for being with us. Can you tell us what led up to this explosion and fire?
I'm sorry, I really don't have a lot of information. I know that an officer visited the home in question at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Beyond that, I know that we have one injured officer who has been removed from the scene, but we do not know at this point who that officer is. The house, it's a duplex, is totally engulfed in flames. The entire structure will be a total loss, I'm sure. And our fire department is working very hard at trying to protect surrounding properties, but at the same time putting out the fire at 46 Mill Pond.
Ken, let me ask you a question. Has this been a problem area? I mean, this looks like the antithesis of a problem area. It's a 55-plus housing development. What in the world have you heard about?
It's been an asset to our community. It's really a very gorgeous-looking place, and it's set in a nice country setting, and it's been a very good addition to the town of Brentwood.
What do you know, if anything, Ken, right now about the evacuations? I understand there are about 47 homes in this development. Is everybody out of there right now?
I don't believe that's the case. I believe that the surrounding buildings and structures have been evacuated, but I don't believe that they put everybody out. Now, I have to be honest with you, I have not even been able to get near the scene because of the police presence and the fact that they won't allow me in.
Well, Ken Christensen has been talking to us, and he did give us one piece of information that a police officer in Brentwood, New Hampshire, apparently has been shot in some sort of an altercation. We'll continue to monitor the story and be right back.
I want to bring you an update now on our breaking news. This is coming out of Brentwood, New Hampshire. You see a home here that is destroyed by fire. Just heard from Ken Christensen, one of the selectmen in Brentwood, New Hampshire, that police arrived at this home around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and not long after, there was an officer-involved shooting.
According to Ken, the officer may have been wounded, but we haven't been able to confirm that with other sources. We do know that there was an explosion. Let's play that tape. About an hour ago, and that really escalated. Now, what was inside? It was a propane tank or some sort of explosives. We don't know. There are a lot of unanswered questions. Police are being very closed-mouthed about all this as they've sealed off this area. It's a very affluent, higher-end, 55-plus neighborhood, and it's called the Mill Pond crossing area. It's on the way to Portsmouth.
And Jack, this is a man who was taken on a stretcher from the driveway. He'd been in front of a tactical vehicle probably for 15 minutes. Unclear who he is at this point, but as you say, a lot of questions we hope to answer in the next few hours.
Yeah, this is a real mystery. Boy, you wouldn't expect that in an absolutely beautiful place in New England. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Coming up tonight here on WBZ News at 11, we will have the very latest on this breaking news. This is a house fire in Brentwood, New Hampshire, an officer-involved shooting and evacuations.
Boy, a lot of stories were breaking right off at the top of this newscast. We'll have a busy night ahead of us tonight.